Hello and welcome back to coverage of Grand Prix Richmond. Maria Bartholdi here in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen, and we're about to see a match here in round 5 between Jarvis Yu and Michael Majors. Both players with a lot of GP top 8s under their belts.
Jarvis very recently top 8ing out in Sacramento.
Michael Majors is going to kick things off with a True Heart Duelist, which can block up to 2 creatures and bombs for 3. And it appears Jarvis playing a white-green deck.
Yeah, just 2 colors here. Using that Spring to Mind just as a 3-mana rampant growth in his deck.
Passes back to Michael, who is playing a white-black sort of zombies, good creatures deck. Low to the ground. We've got a couple copies of Gustwalker and Talkrop Elite, that sort of thing. Here is Unwavering Initiate, 3/2 with Vigilance, Embalms for 5. Nothing but Embalm on Michael Major's side.
Yeah, and he has a good curve here. So, he's really banking on the fact that his deck is going to be able to play something that costs 2 on the second turn, something that costs 3 on the third turn, and so on and so forth. And if he's able to do that, then it's going to be really hard for his opponents to keep their footing.
Speaking of Talkrop Elites, Jarvis Yu plays one of his own. There you can see the bird. It's a 2/2. When it attacks, you can exert it. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
Yeah, we've talked about this card before, but I'll say it again. I think it may be the most underrated common in the set. Very early drafts in the format, it was going around real late, and they've dried up quick.
And here you see the Talkrop Elite trading with the Unwavering Initiate. But you're not losing all that value because it can come back from the graveyard thanks to Embalm. Michael Majors playing his own Talkrop Elite and passing the turn back.
Yeah, Jarvis taking that aggressive trade there, even though his Talkrop Elite cost more mana than the Unwavering Initiate, and the Unwavering Initiate can come back. Jarvis thinks, well, my deck is probably more powerful in the late game. He's trying to be aggressive. I just need to buy myself time. So if I can trade here and buy myself some life and take away one of his cards, then I'll be in a good spot for once I'm able to untap with more lands and actually play my more powerful spells that can go up the ground.
You see here compulsory rest on the Talkrop Elite. It can't attack or block anymore, so there will be no exerting for the near future. Michael Majors can sack it to gain 2 life. He's just going to get in there with the True Heart Duelist for 2. Jarvis Yu drops to 14. And here comes a Baleful Amit on Michael Major's side of the battlefield, putting the -1/-1 counter. That's kind of useful there on the Talkrop Elite. Doesn't need to stay on the massive lifelinker.
Yeah, when you have an opponent that's playing black and/or green, it is often a difficult decision whether or not you want to use a compulsory rest in the early turns of the game, because it will often give them something to put -1/-1 counters on that they might have otherwise had to actually put on something relevant. So you end up giving people, 4/5 Defiant Great Maws on the third turn, or things like that. Or as we see here, a 4/3 Baleful Amit.
Here comes another Talkrop Elite. That's actually a really interesting point. I hadn't thought of using compulsory rest in that manner. Michael Major's just going to gain the life there. Goes back to 20.
I like Jarvis' deck a lot. Multiple copies of Talkrop Elite in a green-white deck. This is my kind of strategy.
And here comes Blighted Bat, a hasty Blighted Bat getting in there, asking, do you want to trade Talkrop Elite? I would allow that. There you can see him. Just a little 2/1 for 3.
And I think Jarvis probably will take that trade unless he's thinking about a double block here on the Amit.
I mean, Baleful Amit, how incentivized are you to get rid of that thing?
Yeah, if you're planning on racing at all, then you need to get it off the table almost immediately. If you start taking hits from it, then you are resigning yourself to a longer game where you're going to have to win by outcarding your opponent and by winning the economy game as opposed to the race game.
Sure, and Jarvis does just as you suggested, drops to 8. Michael Majors bounces up to 26. Oh, here's a mythic. Vizier of the Menagerie, 3/4 for 3 and a green. You can look at the top card of your library, which is handy. You can do that at any time. You may cast the top card of your library if it's a creature card. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast creature spells.
That's a strange-looking guy. I'm just going to come right out and say it.
Do you mean it's because it's a snake in a vest?
Yeah, I
Snack
think
vest.
so. Yeah.
I think he looks dapper.
Yeah, he does. Are those are pets, I guess?
Yeah, those are his
friends
pets.
or pets?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes.
Binding Mummy hits the table, and Festering Mummy as well, tapping down that Vizier as the Amit and True Heart Duelist get in. Binding Mummy showing its strength here. Get that 3/4 out of the way. Tap.
And it seems as if though Jarvis has identified his role in this game correctly throughout the game. You know, he knew that he needed to be trading aggressively. He needed to be buying himself as much time as possible. Unfortunately, even doing so, Michael Major's deck was powerful enough and aggressive enough to overcome that and to kill Jarvis before he was able to generate a very large advantage with the Vizier of the Menagerie, or of Menagerie.
Yeah, Jarvis forced a chump block there with the Naga Vitalist on the Baleful Amit.
And with the Wander in Death now, Major's actually, putting another zombie in his hand so he's able to tap down more of Jarvis's blockers, and with Jarvis at just 8, it's a really scary spot.
Jarvis, you can see that look thinking on his face. Can I survive? 6 life to 30. Cast out. Oh, on the Binding Mummy.
And I think that's what he had to do. I mean, here he's likely going to 1, blocking the Duelist.
Cast out, sending the Mummy into exile until Cast out leaves the battlefield. And here's a final reward to take down the Vizier. Michael comes in for enough damage. Michael Majors will take game 1 against Jarvis Yu. That was cool to see the Vizier in play, but it didn't really get to do its thing.
No, it was carried off on a block in bandages into the world of exile.
So grim. Although I suppose for them, that's what they like.
Yeah, they're into that.
All right, we'll come back with more Magic here in round 5 after these brief messages. To coverage of Grand Prix Richmond. Maria Bartholdi in the booth alongside Pro Tour champion Jacob Van Lunen. Here we're watching Michael Majors and Jarvis Yu shuffling up, getting ready for game 2. Michael Majors able to take down game 1 against Jarvis just by applying pretty consistent pressure. All right, we're going to take a look in at Mike Siegrist and Shuhei Nakamura.
Shuhei Nakamura making the long trip from Japan to this Grand Prix.
Wow.
Yeah, well, the Pro Tour next week.
Pro Tour, yeah.
It's not so bad, but
I'm trying to see.
Yeah,
What
he's
that-
got some stuff in play. An Archfiend of Ifnir.
We've got an
is
Archfiend
the-
of Ifnir, Festering Mummy, Gravedigger, Trueheart Twins. I'm looking at that card, that artifact there. Can't quite, can't quite tell. Mike Siegrist, meanwhile, has a Decimator Beetle.
Watcher of the Dead.
Oh, that's the Watcher
I
of
think
the
that's
Dead.
what that is.
It didn't. I couldn't tell from here. As well as his own pair of Trueheart Twins and an Oshra Cultivator. All right, we're going to head back to our first match because I want to make sure you see all of this magic that we've got for you from Jarvis Yu and Michael Majors. Binding Mummy hits the table for Jarvis. You're not the only one who can have a Binding Mummy. And here we see an Anointer Priest from Michael Majors, which you mentioned earlier. 1/3, you gain a life every time a creature token enters the battlefield under your control. Embalm for 4. And you said this is one of the lower end Embalm cards?
Yeah, this is a card. I'm never really thrilled when this makes my deck. I do like sideboarding it in racing matchups a lot of the time, especially when I have like multiple copies of something like like an Oketra's Monument. or
Sure,
the like.
sure. Yeah, Oketra's Monument makes total sense. So we've had a Spring to Mind into a Colossopede from Jarvis Yu.
Ooh.
That is a 5/5 for 5. Definitely beats that Baleful Amit that Michael Majors has currently. Though with cartouches running around these days, pretty swingy.
Yeah, the nice thing about Colossopede is that even if the Baleful Amit's able to pick up a cartouche, the Colossopede will still be able to trade unless the
Right.
Baleful Amit gets first strike.
Here we have an On-Crop Champion. Speaking of cartouches, with the cartouche. On-Crop Champion 4/4 for 4.
Yeah, now a 5/5 with
Now
first
a
strike.
5/5 first striker. And when it attacks, you untap all other creatures you control. The cartouche of Solidarity coming along with a warrior token. That's a nice little army Jarvis has built up.
I've actually been really impressed with the Colossopede.
Yeah?
That's another card that I've been noticing people will just throw that thing around the table, not thinking of it as very much, but
But a 5/5 for 5 is not something we always get.
no, it's quite good, and it's a place in our curve that we're neglecting a lot in this set.
So I know that green-white is one of the decks that you most like to draft.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this looks like something like a shell, for instance, that you would be happy with?
No, not at all. Yeah, like the Jarvis
You want
Yu
it to
is
be more aggressive.
Yeah, well, Jarvis Yu here has a green-white deck with a number of reasonable cards that are pretty good, but as far as the archetypes
Sure.
in the set Amonkhet go, when you're drafting green-white, you really want to have as many creatures with Exert as possible.
Okay.
And that makes a lot of the later picks, cards like Spidery Grasp or Jeru's Resolve, into really reasonable cards that are going to fill out those last 5 or 6 slots in your deck, and you'll be happy playing them. If you don't have the right amount of Exert in your green-white deck, if it's just creatures that do things, or creatures just with power and toughness, that's not really how you're going to be winning matches in this format.
That's so interesting
Yeah,
because cards like Jero's Resolve and Spidery Grasp are not ones I would value very highly at all, normally.
Yeah, they're not very good cards that happen to be very good in the right green-white deck.
So we've got a final reward, which managed to take down Jarvis Yu's board almost entirely, other than a Binding Mummy and the Warrior, and some combat trades, leaving Michael Majors with just that Anointer Priest, and now a Bone Picker and a Wayward Servant. Bone Picker 3/2 Flying Death Touch, just a great card that we've seen a lot of today, actually. And Wayward Servant 2/2 for 2 that gains and drains whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control. So we've certainly cleared the board up quite a bit after last combat. Would you rather have a Colossopede or a Greater Sandworm?
depends on the deck.
Yeah.
I think that there are, if I'm drafting, usually Colossopede.
Okay.
I think that there are a lot of decks where you just don't want Greater Sandworm at all. And Colossopede, basically any green deck that I'd be happy playing 1 or 2 copies.
We have an Embalmed Unwavering Initiate entering the battlefield for Michael Majors that is going to trigger the Wayward Servant.
And the Anointer Priest.
And the Anointed Priest, yes,
Yeah,
good point.
So -1 for Jarvis, +2 for Michael.
You mentioned Oketra's Monument. It is in one of these players' deck lists.
It's in Michael's deck.
It's in Michael's deck. Makes sense.
Have you gotten a chance to play with many of these monuments yet?
I have played with against an Oketra's Monument that just ran me over. Just ran me over.
Yeah, the ceiling on that card is so high, and the floor on that card is so low.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a card that when it's in your opening hand, usually just completely takes a game over and wins you the game very easily. And when you draw it later on in the game, it basically does absolutely nothing.
Speaking of cats, here we have Regal Caracal hitting the battlefield for Jarvis U. 3/3. Other cats you control get +1/+1, have lifelink. Oh, P.S. Here's 2 more cats. They're 1/1 with lifelink anyway, so they're 2/2 lifelinkers. Meow.
Yeah, it's a really good rare.
In comes Bone Picker for 3 damage. Followed up by Speak of the Devil, or Speak of the God, rather, Oketra's Monument.
And this is gonna help Michael go wider. I mean, he drew it in the mid game, so it's not just an actual stone do nothing, but
Right.
it's definitely not where he would have wanted to draw it. I mean, you look at all those creatures in his graveyard and all those creatures on the board, and all of those, not only would a good portion of them have been less expensive to cast, but all of them would have also represented additional
Yes.
warrior tokens in play. So you can just imagine what Majors' board would have looked like had he had that Oketra's Monument in his opening hand.
Do you think Oketra's Monument is the best monument?
Yes. I think Ronus Monument is also
+2/+2 and trample.
also quite good. But I think that to play Ronus Monument, you really need to be playing like 16 creatures. You can
Yeah.
get away with playing like 14 with Oketra's. And, other monuments, your deck has to be a very specific type of strategy in order to play them.
In come the lifelinking cats. One is going to be blocked by the Embalmed Unwavering Initiate. The other will get through. Jarvis is going to gain some life. And follow it up with, there he is again, Vizier of the Menagerie. He's going to take a look at the top card of his deck right away. There we get another look at this Neck and a Vest. I know, it's technically a Naga, but Sneck's just so much more fun to say. Oh, and he's going to play it, sure enough.
That's so good when you get to just look at your top card and cast it right away.
I just think it's fun to be able to just look at it whenever. You can do this at any time. Excuse me, I'm looking at the top card of my library just whenever I want.
It's like when you're playing with a little brother or a younger cousin and they're it's your turn, they're doing stuff and they're so anxious about they're going to draw the next turn, they're looking at the top of their deck.
Yeah.
They can do that with this card.
This card allows you to play the game like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Ooh, what is it? So we have a Gustwalker for Michael Majors, which I believe is being exerted, turning it into a 3/3 flyer. No way to block a flyer on Jarvis U's side.
Yeah, and I think Gustwalker is one of the best commons in this set, actually. As far as 2-drops go, they don't really get more premium than Gustwalker.
Yeah, being able to send it into the air and give it an extra power and toughness is really powerful for just 2 mana. And like you mentioned, if you want to play an aggressive deck, especially in draft, you want that card.
Absolutely.
Compulsory Rest will send Bone Picker off to take a little nap as Jarvis U considers his attacks.
Yeah, now Jarvis, he doesn't want the game to go too long. He realizes that the faster he closes out the game, the less that monument does.
That's a good point. In comes Binding Mummy, Regal Caracal, Vizier of the Menagerie, and a cat token.
For what it's worth, however, I think the Vizier over the course of a longer game is going to do a lot more than the monument.
Oh, yes. All right, the Anointed Priest is going to jump in front of the Vizier there. Oh, Synchronized Strike from Jarvis U, giving 2 creatures +2/+2 and untapping them.
That card's like a blowout 95% of the
such a
time
blowout.
it's cast. And in the green-white decks that I was just talking about,
Right.
in the Exert decks, it really is just disgusting. As you're untapping 2 things which would have stayed tapped for a few turns otherwise. Just a very, very, very strong card.
It's such a blowout. And you don't always see it coming because it's an uncommon. So that is going to swing combat mightily in Jarvis's favor. And all that Michael has left on the battlefield is a Gustwalker who has been exerted. He's just going to scoop him up and tie things up here. 1 game apiece, Jarvis U and Michael Majors. You know, something I was thinking about was Synchronized Strike when I first saw the card spoiled. And 3 mana for a combat trick is pretty expensive, but the effect is so good.
Yeah, especially with Exert in this format, it's absurd. And I also just love the flavor of it. You know, they're twins. You know, dogs are born as twins on Amonkhet. That's how it is.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
True Heart Twins is a card?
Yeah, I think the jackals are almost always born as twins. It's
Oh,
part
cool.
of the storyline. So
Let's take a look in again on Mike Siegrist versus Shuhei Nakamura. This is the same game we peeked in on earlier. Siggy at 2, Shuhei at 12.
I'm pretty impressed that Mike is still in this
I
game.
know,
Did
so
you
am I.
see that board that we left?
It did
went away
not
from
look
here?
good for him.
What happened?
Well, he's managed to get some good creatures down, I guess. He has the True Heart Twins and an Ornery Kudu without any -1/-1 counters. Looks like Shuhei, oh no, may have attacked with the True Heart Twins last turn. Not sure.
Players ending 3 p.m. Sealed Spectacular. Your pairings for your round have been posted. Once again, 3 p.m. Sealed Spectacular players. Your
Doomed Dissenter is on Shuhei's side of the board, which, if you remember the card Doomed Traveler, which when it
Yeah.
died created a 1/1 spirit.
It's a similar type of card. It
Similar
costs an extra
effect.
mana. Doom Traveler, though, was just a great card.
Yeah.
Amazing card. Like, constructed all-star.
Probably no such future for Doomed Dissenter.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think the difference between 1 and 2 mana is pretty great. However, Doom Dissenter does a lot of interesting things. Like, I've been pretty impressed with that card in some of the black-green decks I've had.
Mm-hmm. Takes the -1/-1 counter pretty well.
It does, and it also combos nicely with Bone Picker. And it combos especially well with a -1/-1 counter and a Bone Picker. And when you cast that guy and then you kill it with your own guy to get a
Right.
nice big green or black creature, and then you cast your Bone Picker for 1 black mana.
You feel like you're on top of the world.
Yeah, it's like you're using multiple dark rituals in limited. It's really fun.
Shuhei dropping an Archfiend of Ifnir there. Previous turn, Mike had played a Colossopede, speaking of the 5/5 for 5 we like so much.
Yeah, now, you deal with Archfiend of Ifnir once, and you think you're safe, but then it comes back, and that's probably just the end of the game.
Yeah. Looks like it may be curtains here for Siegrist. Not sure what he's going to cast here.
Got to find an answer to the Archfiend if he wants to survive.
Trial of Zeal. And then he's just going to attack all out.
Oh,
and
wow.
exert.
And he's exerting all of them.
So all getting +1/+0. And the Bitterblade Warrior is also
the-
getting +1/+0.
Yeah, the the True Heart Twins triggers for each creature that's exerting.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's actually it's whenever you exert a creature, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
Wow. So this team has all got +2/+0,
Yes.
and Bitterblade Warrior has +3/+0.
yeah.
Well,
This I don't know.
he's still
I'm
gonna
gonna
have
let the chips fall where they may and see what happens.
I just want to find out. Siegrist has still got one card in hand. Because even if all of these things block. Oh. Shuhei's going to cycle.
Oh, and that cycle allows Shuhei to survive. Oh my goodness.
What a mess. What a mess. All right, this dies, this dies, this dies. There goes your Archfiend. Wow! And Shuhei just left with the zombie.
It's a lethal zombie, though.
Go.
That Desert Ceradon in Shuhei's hand was
It was what he needed.
exactly what he needed.
Oh. It's a cartouche. And a Destined to Lead.
I believe Battlefield Scrounger?
Does Siegrist have an answer to this zombie? Shuhei very tentatively coming in. Yeah, he makes Siegrist, scoops him
Yeah.
up. Shuhei gets that game. Let's rejoin our main feature match.
That was a crazy game.
That was cool.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to see the end of that.
He almost pulled it out. Jarvis, you can see there in a mass drop shirt. So we get ready for teams at the Pro Tour coming up. Michael Majors, speaking of getting Oketra's Monument out early, has it out much earlier this game.
Yeah, and we're about to see what that card can do when you play it on the third turn. It just so much value. And we're going to see a Binding Mummy that's... Oh, the Binding Mummy is pretty impressive.
Double cartouched right now.
Yeah. That trample is going to help a lot here against Oketra's Monument.
So Binding Mummy currently wearing a cartouche of Solidarity and of Strength, giving it +2/+2, trample, and first strike. Get in there, buddy.
It's hard, though, because when you're trying to race a lifelink creature, it doesn't usually work out well for you. So even though he has this 4-power first striker trampler, the Baleful Emmet is going to be creating 6-point life swings every single turn. And if Michael has some type of combat trick to go along with the Baleful Emmet, then it's going to be really rough for Jarvis because he's playing green-white and he does not really have instant speed removal outside of a card like Impeccable Timing.
And there it is. Speaking of Impeccable Timing, 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Gets rid of the Emmet. Dispatches it quite easily.
Impeccable Timing is one of those cards that in most sets is very underwhelming.
Yes, and it's surprising to me. When I first learned that people weren't in love with this card, I was like, why? It's 3 damage for 1 and a white.
Yeah, the thing is the timing that it requires.
I see what you did there.
Yes. I think that it might be a card that you might want to sideboard out even after your opponent's seen it in a game. It's a card that's very easy to play around and that gets punished by most combat tricks.
And, of course, the damage isn't just to anything at any time. It has to be attacking or blocking, so there's that drawback as well. Wander in Death is the play for Michael Majors, returning a Binding Mummy and the Baleful Emmet to his hand, and he's going to play out the Mummy right away. Getting another Warrior. I got to tell you, I wish that Oketra's Monument and Oketra herself made cats. Would that just be too good?
I guess maybe it would be too good. But, I mean, what's it going to interact with besides a Regal Caracal?
I don't know. There's probably some other, like they'd make a sweet legacy cat deck by mistake. Whoops.
Yeah. Oh, man. We made cats good.
Here's a Winged Shepherd for Jarvis Yu, 3/3, Flying Vigilance. Another of these cards was cycling for a single color of mana. How do you feel about this card?
I mean, I think it's the least good of all the single mana cyclers. I would much rather have, a card like Desert Ceradon or Horror of the Broken Lands. However, still pretty reasonable and playable. 3/3 Flying Vigilance, a nice body, even if it is very overcosted. And the fact that you can cycle it for a single white mana means that it's, just going to be able to replace itself when it's not what you want to be doing in a particular game.
Right.
Also, single mana cyclers, they have a lot of synergy in this set. Like, you see Wandering Death there at the top of the screen for Michael Majors, and we've talked about that a few times this weekend already. But that's a nice way to create card advantage in the mid game.
He just keeps making those warriors. Oketra's Monument showing off for us today.
Yeah, the problem is First Strike and Trample on that Binding Mummy make it really dangerous.
Yes.
And not only is it really dangerous in that regard, but once you're finally able to build up enough creatures to, just block it with 10 guys or whatever you're going to have to do, then if Jarvis happens to have a combat trick, if he has something as unexciting as a Spidery Grasp, could just end up being a Plague Wind level spell. It's absurd, yeah.
And he can just leave the ground blocked up with that Binding Mummy, and now Colossipede got in there with his Winged Shepherd for 3 points. He's just like, I'll sit back on these two guys.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason Jarvis is not attacking now with the Binding Mummy is because Baleful Emmet has lifelink. So you really don't want to be playing a racing game against a lifelinking creature on the other side of the table.
Something like Trial of Solidarity seems like it would be just an all-star in Michael Major's deck as well.
Yeah, Trial of Solidarity is a nice follow-up to an Oketra's Monument draw, to be sure.
+2/+1 Vigilance. How many times have you gotten wrecked or wrecked face with that card?
I've definitely been on the giving end of wrecking face with that card much more than I've been on the receiving end.
We must have been playing.
Yeah.
I remember playing this game where somebody had the Monument and of course the White Trial and then a whole bunch of cartouches, and I was just shocked at how great it was.
Yeah, I've killed people completely out of nowhere from very high life totals by casting Trial of Solidarity multiple times in a single turn by playing it, cartouching, replaying it, and
because the white
fun
cartouche
card.
is so cheap. It's
Yeah,
only
it
a
costs
single
one.
white mana, and the red as well.
Your draft is waiting for you. Marco Polo, your draft is ready to start.
If you're Michael Majors, what are you hoping to be able to do here?
Well, I mean, one would think my opponent has a 4-power first striker on the other side. It's going to be really, really hard to ever attack into that. But he is a Binding Mummy, so there are a lot of things that could happen. I mean, even that True Heart Duelist ending up in the graveyard could result in him being able to tap that down and getting a good attack in. He is also stuck on 4 lands and has been for a very long time. It's likely that his hand is clogged up with 5s at this point.
Yeah.
Given the colors he's on, he could have cards. There's a really wide range of spells that are really good at 5. The ones that don't cycle are the ones that he probably has, so maybe Final Reward, things like that. And he's going to need to draw that 5th land to get the flyer off the table.
Yeah, he's only going to be able to take 2 hits from it, and here comes the Binding Mummy and the Colossipede in. Anyway, despite Baleful Emmet's lifelink. That, if Jarvis Yu was happening to play 2 impeccable timings, could deal with the Emmet, but I don't know that he is. No, he only has 1.
Oh, this is interesting. So Michael Majors is trying to figure out how blocks work because he wants to block two things with True Heart Duelist, but block one of those things also with Baleful Ammon. Like he wants to block both creatures on Colossopede, but also have the True Heart Duelist blocking
Sure.
the mummy.
I would think you could be able to do that.
I'm sure you can do that, but I don't think it makes a difference because I think the Binding Mummy will be able to assign all of its damage to Michael anyway. If that makes sense.
Yep.
So
Yeah, Michael is at 6.
it does, however, make a difference if there are instants involved. So
Oh, this is tricky. I didn't even think about that.
yeah, this is a complicated combat step.
Have you found this set to play out in a way that that games are usually more complex than other limited formats?
Yes, I think that this is a great limited format. I think a sealed format, especially, lends itself to like very long and intricate games where you're very much rewarded for playing well and very much punished for not playing well.
So when I was in Seattle recently filming those Access Magic videos, I remember I was talking to Gavin Verhey, who works in R&D, and he said, all I can say is that pro players are going to like this set.
Yeah.
High complexity level.
Well, I agree with him. I think that our players will like this set a lot, and what just happened there is just
Cast out.
absurd. Yeah. So, cast out already one of the better uncommons in the set, and then the fact that he can use it at instant speed because of its flash ability, it means that he's able to exile that Baleful Ammon, and now all three of those warriors that block that Colossopede are just going to die, and Major's going to be left with a paltry board of a 1/1 Binding Mummy against Jarvis Yu and his squad of a Winged Shepherd, 4/4 First Strike Trampler, and a warrior of his own.
Yeah. Yeah, he absolutely, if nothing else, must deal with the Winged Shepherd, or he will die next turn. Splendid Agony finished off the Colossopede there, giving it some -1/-1 counters. It's an expensive little combat trick, but it usually does the job quite nicely.
Yeah, that's a card that I actually expected this card to play better than it does. I've been a little bit underwhelmed with it, to be honest.
Bone Picker hits the table for Michael, which gains him a warrior. So that's going to be able to block the Shepherd.
And I think Michael is dead to an all-out attack here. I think he's just dead on board. Jarvis just has to go for it.
Yeah, because he has a 4/4 trampling first striker, 3/3 and a 1/1.
Yeah. And I don't think there's even anything in the format that for that cost
No, it's
interacts.
just like a 1 black mana.
Yeah, so
There's only supernatural stamina, but that just gives +2/+0 and then it returns tapped.
yeah. So Jarvis chooses to attack with everything. The game will be his.
Oh, it just attacks with the mummy and passes the turn back.
Doesn't that have a cartouche of strength on it?
I think it does. Is that not what that is? We're going to check on that for you.
Yeah. I'm a bit confused, but that's okay.
He has a trample guy, but it's not been assigning trample, it's not been trampling over.
So, Wayward Servant there for Michael Majors. Really, again, Oh, so there. It seems that the trampling damage may have not been assigned to the player there.
So it's not something that Michael has to point out?
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, all of that damage could be assigned to the creature, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we have an embalmed True Heart Duelist now on the table also.
And that Wayward Servant is going to gain Michael life potentially. And here is a Ketra with her monument. She is live.
Wow, and
Wow.
is Michael fighting his way back into this game now?
I don't know. It looks like it. Trample man. Edifice of Authority will be able to stop Michael from attacking with something and potentially lock it down altogether once there are 3 brick counters on it.
Yeah, and that's a card that I've been really impressed with. It's a card that on first read I was like, oh, this is decent. And as I've played with it more, I've been really impressed with it. I think that it's a card that, the first copy is great, the second copy is reasonable, and the third copy is but you don't want too many of them. It's because of the way it ties up your mana. And it's similar to Fanbearer in that regard.
Right.
You also don't want those and Fanbearers because you don't want multiple types of cards that are tying up your mana.
Edifice of Authority, good at totally locking down the game. Wow. Jarvis might kick himself once he realizes he's missed a lot of trample damage.
Yeah.
Oh, happens to all of us.
I mean, we've all done it.
Yeah. Edifice of
I haven't
Authority.
really, but I was just trying to say
Oh,
that.
you're just trying to.
Yeah.
It's okay. Your reputation stays pristine. I know
Yeah.
I have. I'll cop to that. So we've got a compulsory rest hitting the Bone Picker, so Jarvis can attack in with his 3/3 Angel. We have a Talkrop Elite on the table for Michael Majors, but it can't block it profitably.
And here, Michael, I mean, he can take this and survive. It's not the end of the world for him.
Yeah. Oketra makes another warrior.
And this could be a very big attack here.
Wow, he
Oh
has
my
a
God.
lot of creatures.
Yeah.
And the
It's
ability to
annoying.
gain 2 life from compulsory rest at some point, potentially.
I mean, he's got to go for it soon because next turn he either needs to block with Takrop Elite or he needs to win the game this turn. Because even gaining the 2 life off compulsory rest, it only puts him at 3, and the Winged Shepherd does have 3 power, so it's time for him to do some math.
All right, so Edifice of Authority is going to say something can attack. I'm going to guess it's a Ketra, but I'm not sure. Final rest, or final reward rather, cast on that Winged Shepherd will exile it. And the Talkrop Elite on this board too is so much damage.
Yeah, it represents a lot of damage here.
Jarvis just gets in for 2, but next turn he could really unleash if he wanted to. But not actually, because that's not in this set. That's a mechanic from Return to Ravnica. On Crop Champion hits the board 4/4. When you exert it, untap your other creatures. Michael Majors at 3, thanks to sacrificing due to compulsory rest. I'm just on the edge of my seat right now.
Yeah, I am too. This is unbelievable to me. The fact that Majors is, still having the opportunity to play this game, let alone the fact that he's fighting his way back in now by making, soldiers with his Oketra the True.
Yeah.
And by, just powering through this whole match, just pretty impressive to me.
So the Edifice must have said the Takrap Elite can't attack. And Oketra gets in. Gustwalker for Jarvis. And just has to pass the turn back. Making 2 more warriors.
And it's crazy because had he realized that there was trample on the Binding Mummy for so many turns before this, it would have been, just sending itself into the red zone and, really just putting a lot of pain. But there are so many tiny little things that you have to remember in this. Like a random keyword trample being on your 2/2 creature that's, buffed up to a 4/4 is just completely changes the math of everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Edifice of Authority going to tap down say the Takrap Elite cannot attack.
And the Gustwalker, it changes quite a bit here.
Yes, it does.
I think the biggest thing about the Gustwalker is the fact that the Edifice can be used to make it so the Takrap Elite can't block. And the Gustwalker is actually a lethal attacker here. The Majors being at only 3.
So he's just attacking with the Ketra here. Is there a reason that he's not attacking with more, do you think?
I guess the Takrap Elite was turned off with the Edifice, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So
It's just not worth it to get all the warriors in.
yeah, Michael needs...
All right, he's going for it.
Yep.
And there it is.
That's it.
Michael extends a hand. Jarvis Yu wins 2-1, despite forgetting about trample. Which, to be fair, is his responsibility.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, that was a really cool game, though.
That was.
What should not have been as cool as it was.
It lasted for quite some time. We got a bunch of bonus magic out of that. Yeah. And I'm always down for some bonus magic.
All right, we're going to take a brief break here and come back and watch another match in just a few minutes here at GP Richmond.